My name is Mike Allison, village manager and village clerk. And tonight, in the absence of Mayor Byrne, we need a president pro tem. But first, let me establish a quorum. Roll call.
Trustees Hebda.
Here.
Cook. Marquardt.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Williams.
Okay, so would one of you like to nominate one of your peers as the president pro tem for this evening?
I'll make the motion to make Trustee Hebda President pro tem for the remainder of this meeting or until the village president appears.
I second it.
Roll call.
Trustees Cook. Marquardt.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Schwartz.
Aye.
Williams. Hebda.
Aye. Okay. Could we please have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, sure. Okay, first item of business is there are any citizens wishing to address the board on something other than what's on the board or committee of the whole at this time? Cliff, nothing? You sure? All right, sounds good. All right. There are no official reports. I mean, I'll defer to the village manager. Is there anyone that needs a speaking part at this point in time? No reports. That's amazing.
We're waiting
We're waiting till later.
We want to
Okay.
surprise you.
Gotcha. Okay, so the next item then would be the omnibus vote agenda. Is there a motion to approve items A through
I think it is.
K?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got.
All right. Roll call.
Trustees Marquardt.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Schwartz.
Aye.
Williams. Hebda.
Aye.
Cook.
The next item we have is the unfinished or additional business. We will skip to item B. Is there approval of the village board meetings of January 22nd, 2013?
Motion to approve.
Second it.
Any comments or questions? No, otherwise, roll call.
Trustee Schultz.
Aye.
Schwartz.
Aye.
Williams. Hebda.
Aye.
Cook. Marquardt.
Aye.
I'm assuming we need to skip item C,
Well,
or can we?
yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
See, and then I would suggest if you want, Trustee Williams indicated she'd be late. She got hung up at work also. And I mentioned Trustee Cook. You may wish to defer the Oaks also.
Okay.
Because you may want to have everybody,
For
as many people here as possible.
Sorry, guys,
up
you have
to
to
you.
wait a few minutes. All right, so we'll defer items A and item C and item D. Is there any new business or communication to come before the board at this time? I just want to thank Dave Brown for all your work on the streets. I know that we've had a couple of little bits of not significant snowfall, but some tough stuff. So thank you from all of us and the residents too. It's been a good job. So I know it's, yes, it finally did. And we do need the snow. We'll take a little bit more. I will. I don't know if anyone else was. All right. Anything else? Anybody else got anything to say? No? Jim?
One quick thing. I attended the Lake County Municipal League legislative breakfast. I brought the materials and gave them to Mike. I'm assuming he'll share them with you. But both BACOG, which is the Barrington Area Council of Governments, along with the Lake County Municipal League, have a legislative agenda, and I found their legislative agenda to be right in line with ours. Attending this year was Representative Schneider of the Congress and the House, the United States House of Representatives, and Senator Durbin. I did have the opportunity to talk to Senator Durbin about the Marketplace Fairness Act to make sure that it didn't set a precedent that would ultimately be harmful to us with regard to our agreements with CDW and the furniture stores, et cetera, that deliver large ticket items outside of our community so that we can continue to garner our 1% based on Illinois' current origin for taxation purposes rather than destination, which most of the country uses. So anyway, they'll be looking at things and reporting back to Mike Allison, but I have to say that the both organizations are in line with all the communications and ideas that we've put forward for the community here and the greater community of Lake County.
Great.
So it was a good meeting, and
Good.
I was happy.
Any other comments or any other new business? Okay, then we're going to recess the, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kelmer, you didn't have your light on.
I'm sorry, my
Yeah, I don't see
button
a
is
blinking
broke.
light. So.
I just
It's broke?
I hope that's not an indication.
Aren't you glad
of
I'm
something.
back?
Yeah, there you
I've
go.
only been gone for a
Welcome
while.
back, Trustee Ember.
Thank you.
I wanted to, Trustee Schultz asked a question tonight with regards to the Hobby Lobby signs. And there's been a series of questions asking, are they done? And I just wanted to clarify, those signs are not done. There's a brick base that has to be constructed on them, so they ran out of weather to get those signs completed. So they will be completed. They are not done at this point, so I just wanted to answer that question on camera more than anything else. So thanks for bringing that up.
Good. Okay. All right. I guess we'll need to recess the board meeting so we can go to committee of the whole. Have a motion to recess.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, roll call.
Trustees Williams, Habda,
Aye.
Cook, Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz.
Aye. Okay. I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting together. Is there approval of the committee of the whole minutes of January 22nd,
Motion to-
2013?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Lynn, roll call.
Trustees Habda,
Aye.
Cook, Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams.
All right, the first item on committee is the Greenleaf Townhomes, consideration of changes by Icon Building Group. Oh, I'm sorry. I saw your light.
Thank you.
Michael, sorry.
I can give you a brief summary while the applicant comes up. And the applicant, thank you. As the board is aware, this project is located on the south side of Greenleaf Drive between Tennyson and Swinburne Place. Originally, Ordinance 2006-19 approved this development, which consists of 16 townhome units. The original developer was financially unable to complete the subdivision. The village pulled the letter of credit and completed the site work. However, no buildings have ever been constructed on this project. Icon Building Group, who's before you tonight, acquired the property and is now requesting approval to change the exterior elevations. And you can see the proposed elevations on your screen right now. The change in materials includes replacing the brick facade with a combination of stone and siding. The decorative stone will be placed at the base of the elevation on all four sides of the building. And then siding would be placed above that, and it would be vinyl siding. The gable fronts would have vinyl shakes, and you can see that in a lighter color on the elevation drawing. There would also be some changes to the architectural design. And I'll note in your packet is not only this drawing, but the last page is the original drawing of what was approved back in 2006, and that was an all-brick structure. So some of the changes includes changing the hip roofs above the garage to either a shed roof, which is shown on that drawing, or in the case of the other buildings, a gable roof. The arched main entries would be eliminated, and you see the door that's proposed in place of it, again, on the drawings. And then also some window placements would be changed along with the design of the windows. Each of these revisions would allow the units to be sold at a more marketable, friendly rate, and that's really the motivation in them requesting these changes. There'd be no other amendments requested. It would remain a 16-unit development, there would be 3 4-unit buildings and 2 2-unit buildings. The placement and orientation of the buildings would also remain the same. So for tonight's meeting, if the committee feels that the amendments are substantial, then it would require it go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to reopen the public hearing. Conversely, if the committee determines that these changes still follow the original intent of what was part of the original approval, then the committee could approve those changes as part of the board approval process. Staff, in reviewing these changes, feels that the revisions do support the intent and concept of the original PUD, and it's our recommendation that it be approved. So for tonight's meeting, if the committee concurs with staff's recommendation, then it's appropriate to direct staff to prepare an ordinance approving the architectural changes that are before you tonight. And again, the applicant is here to answer any questions that you have.
Could you gentlemen please state your name for the record? You can use the handheld or either one, whichever is easier.
Charlie Murphy.
Okay.
And Carl Best.
Okay. And how long or when do you want to start this, or what's your time frame for this?
Pretty much immediately. Meaning as time would allow, to get through the process here with the village,
And go to P&Z?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, how many units are we talking about?
16 total.
16, okay. How old are the units exist currently? How old are they currently, or when were they built?
The subdivision was put in, well, the original approval was in 2006, and the subdivision was put in, I believe, in 2007. So the streets and curbs and sidewalks and such are all in, the water mains, sewer lines, but no buildings have been built of
Right,
yet.
okay. Are there any questions from the board?
Maybe.
Yep.
Trustee Schultz. Trustee Schultz?
Yes.
Couple of points. Are these all 3-bedroom?
They're all 3-bedroom, correct.
Okay, how many square feet?
They range in square footage from about 1,650 to low 1,800 square feet.
Okay, and the price point approximately?
Still really working on that, but like 239-ish to 259-ish, somewhere in that ballpark.
That's going to make them pretty much the high price spread on that block. In other words, the buildings around there are going for, I don't know, 110 to 160 tops, the condo units there. You foresee any problem with you being able to sell that out, though?
As a matter of fact, I do. Misspoke on that. Got my developments confused here. 199 to 209 on those there, and then the answer to your question would be no.
Okay, and the 199 gets you a 2-car garage no matter what?
Correct.
Which is an advantage over the existing, because those are all 1-car.
Correct.
Is there a you planning on parking on the drives? Is there 1 slot or 2? Just 1, okay. Well, 2 side by side, 1 deep. That's what I meant, and we understood. Okay. Yeah, from what I'm seeing, it really doesn't look that bad. It definitely has more architectural features and details than the surrounding homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the English Tudor that was originally proposed, but still, all in all, it's a nice mix of usable materials at a price point that community, I think you're looking at a price point that's very reasonable and realistic. I'm good with it.
Anybody else? No?
I'd have to agree.
Okay, then I guess I need a motion to have staff direct you to write an ordinance for this
To
one.
prepare an ordinance amending ordinance 2006-47, approving the exterior elevation changes.
And it'll go to P&Z, correct?
And then it would not have to go to the P&Z.
Does not have to go to P&Z. Okay. Is there a motion to that?
So made.
Second.
Okay, have a roll call?
Just as a
Oh.
question prior, we're not short-circuiting P&Z here. I mean, not that we'd want it to go to P&Z for an additional hearing, but
No, I don't think so. Again, the densities, the massing of the buildings and the overall sizes of them are consistent with what was originally approved. I mean, quite honestly, the architecture that is proposed is much more consistent with the surrounding area, and I think helps to meet that character significantly better than what was originally approved. So I don't believe we have an issue with the commission in taking this tact.
Historically, the board has approved changes to the Aspen Point Row home development, also some changes to the town center, and this would be consistent with those type of approvals where if it's just an exterior elevation change and not a site change, then typically those have been approved at the board level.
Right.
I do have
Yes.
one question because it just hit me. For the year, any houses now that are being built, a requirement is a sprinkler system. And I didn't know if you were aware of it, and I was trying to make sure on that, so.
Yeah, it does have to be sprinklered. In this case, they're attached single family, so even before the previous adoption last October, they still would have had to have been sprinklered. So
So that hasn't
that
changed.
requirement remains the same.
Just want to make sure.
Okay, so there's a motion and second. Are there any other questions or comments? Can I have a roll call?
Trustees Cook, Markwart,
Aye?
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams, Hebda.
Aye. All right, motion approved.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is a request from Ross Dress for Less for approval of their facade at the River Tree Shopping Center.
Thank you. And the proposed facade is, well, excuse me. As the applicant comes and shows you a display of the proposed facade, I can go over the summary for you. This new store would replace Office Depot and River Tree Shopping Center that's located between Eloise Cafe and the former Old Country Buffet. Office Depot would relocate to the vacant space adjacent to Old Navy. The applicant is proposing to raise the overall height of the roof from 31 feet 4 3/4 inches to 35 feet, and that height would comply with the requirements of our zoning code. The pitched shape of the facade would remain the same. The columns and the perimeter of the facade would be brick, and the sign band would be a drive-it material. The colors of each material would match that of the center. I'll let the applicant go into any detail and answer any questions you have. And for tonight's meeting, if the committee feels that the facade renovation is appropriate, then staff should be directed to prepare an ordinance approving the modifications subject to the conditions that are outlined in your packet. And again, the applicant's here to answer any questions that you have.
Can you state your name, please?
Enrique Castel, JTS Architects.
Are there any questions or,
There's nothing on there.
I don't see any signage right now.
The sign is actually going to be addressed by the tenant themselves.
Okay,
We originally told them what the requirements were, and they felt that they would take that by their sign company to come and resolve that.
okay, good, all right, got that, all right.
I can tell you this, the sign can be 136.75 square feet, and they'll be strongly urged to comply with that sign limitation. That's a
All
pretty
right.
good sized sign for that location.
It is, yeah, because it's on the corner there, okay. All right. So you're going to change the front facade, but it's really not going to change much of what looks out there existing, correct?
That's correct. They're pretty much just taking what's there and raising it up
Raising it up,
4 or 5 feet, and they're adding a brick perimeter around the facade too, which is
Okay.
consistent with the rest of the center. So the changes are actually quite minor.
minimal, right, okay. Trustee Schultz?
Looking at the site plan, I'm kind of curious, there's kind of a panhandle on this. Is that to provide some level of access? Is there a truck dock back there?
There is a truck dock back there now.
And that's the whole idea, is to use the existing truck dock?
Correct.
Now, you're taking part of the Old Country Buffet space
No, actually, they're taking the original Office Depot space.
Strictly that?
Strictly that.
Okay, because I guess according to the site plan here,
Yeah, it's the site plan, it was trying to get the line to where it would land. Basically, when the original building was split, I guess, years ago, you know, there is a corridor that accesses the Old Country Buffet, but that's just strictly for deliveries. And that's, so there's about a 6-foot sliver that's taken out of the original building itself.
okay.
Something similar to Best Buy.
I guess so the remaining space though, it's the same space that Old Country took up?
No, it's the original office, the same space as Office Depot.
Business office.
Okay, well, I don't see Old Country, I see Harlem being right next to small shops, I guess.
Oh, no, it's actually closer to the cafe on the corner.
Right, no, they're small
There's
shops,
something,
Right.
there's this new space, but there's nothing that addresses, so I'm having a hard time understanding.
Right, well, the Old Country Buffet left, and
Right.
they're working on a new, the landlord's working on a new lease for that, so that's all I can get into details for that, so.
All right, but is that going to diminish your ability to rent out the Old Country space
No.
because it doesn't have access?
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay. I don't have a problem with the changes in
No, I
the
mean,
architecture. I mean, it's consistent with the other,
the other stuff.
so,
Actually, this whole center is now becoming more like a fashion, which is kind of nice because it's balancing out what you've got, which is going to make it a really nice facility. What is Ross for Less Stress?
It's wonderful.
Okay, I've never been, so
I
I'm
was excited to hear. it
Trustee
coming to
Schwartz,
town.
I'm excited that you're right. That makes me feel good because we know our stuff. Okay,
Predominantly
good.
clothing, I will say.
So, Office Depot, they're going where?
They're going next to Old Navy. There's a vacant space there.
Enough room there?
Pardon me?
There's
They're
enough
shrinking their
room.
store.
Yeah.
They're shrink, okay.
significantly.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, that would make sense. Okay, all right. Okay, so what we really need is a motion for staff to prepare an ordinance for these changes.
Yes,
Is there a
please.
motion to that effect?
motion to approve.
Second,
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, roll call, please.
Trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
aye.
Trustee Schwartz,
Aye.
Trustee Williams, Trustee Hebda,
Aye.
Trustee Cook.
When will you be open? When do you think you'll be,
In June? No. Actually, I don't even know exactly when they're scheduled.
when they're
opening
scheduled
is.
to open?
I know we're supposed to be done a certain point. When
Okay.
they actually open, I'm not sure.
Okay, good. Well,
You said
welcome,
fall,
thank
right?
you.
In the fall.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item is a request from Destination XL for approval of their facade renovations to the River Tree Shopping Center.
Thank you. And Destination XL is going to be located in a portion of the building that was formerly occupied by Blockbuster and Verizon, and the elevation is on your screen now. As you can see by looking at the drawing, a new entrance feature is proposed on the south side of the building facing the River Tree Access Drive. The new design, as you can see, would square off the shape of the roof in that area. The height would remain the same, which is 22 feet. There'd also be architectural casing around the door. That would be bronze in color, and as you can see, that matches the bronze striping on the canopy of the building. The remainder of the facade would be a dry-vit material that is a light silver color. And then just for your information, the existing facade is kind of a
So what's
almost a cream, but a very light cream, so those colors should complement each other.
I don't know.
So that's, in a nutshell, what the changes are and what's being requested tonight. So if the committee feels that the renovations are appropriate, then staff should be directed to prepare an ordinance approving the facade renovations subject to the conditions in your packet, and the applicant is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Charlie Keller with Casual Mail Retail Group.
Okay. Now, is this facing Milwaukee?
It's facing south.
So it's
Is
Best
that-
Buy.
So it,
Space
the entry, it's on the space
You're
is,
moving the entry to the,
the entry is, there's an existing entry there that'll be reworked.
Is going to the west.
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah, it's perpendicular to Milwaukee. It actually faces more or less the Best Buy store across the
Best
parking
Buy
lot.
across from Best Buy.
That's where,
And then what happens to the existing entrance? You're still gonna have two entrances, or you're gonna just have one?
That will be the main entrance. There will be a rear egress door. The entrance on the front facing Milwaukee goes away.
Okay,
the door, there's, this is where the door.
And then there will be another tenant to the right of our
I think
space,
they just didn't.
eventually.
eventually, okay,
Eventually.
okay. How much square footage are you gonna use?
Roughly 7,500.
Okay. Trustee Schultz?
So you're taking half of the building?
More than half, probably 3/4, Joel?
Could you come to the mic and state your name for the record, please, just so we have it on?
I'm Joel Rosenstein from River Tree at Vernon Hills.
Okay.
Sure. They're taking about 8,000 rentable square feet out of 11,000.
Okay. Trustee Markort?
I was just questioning on, because of signage that was brought up about where the entrance is going to be, and is there going to be signage to the front facing Milwaukee? That's what I was,
Yes, we're proposing 3 signs, one on the entry portal, one facing Milwaukee, and the other one facing the rear egress of the building, which would actually be toward the Pier 1 space, I believe.
Why wouldn't you use signage on the monument sign? Is there no room?
We're not entitled.
Pardon?
We own the property separate from the River
I
Tree Court
see.
Shopping Center, and we're not entitled to access
You're
the
not
monument
entitled to that.
signs.
Okay.
okay.
Separately, we may petition for a monument sign on the property.
You won't get it?
There's similar ones
You
throughout
won't
the
get it?
center. No.
You won't get it. There's one monument sign there. I don't want another one. At least for my this chair.
No. I'm talking about the inner access, the ring road. There's most of the buildings,
Direction.
including our.
A directional sign. You don't want a
Yeah.
you want a directional
Yes.
sign, not a monument
Yes.
sign. Okay. Okay.
Were you gonna rent out the other 3,000? Is there another
hope
access
so.
point? Well, is there another access?
Yes, we've
Okay.
divided the building. Previously, it was split between north and south. The building's now been redivided where Casual Mail DXL is taking the entire north side of the building and 2/3 of the south side. We'll have about 1/3 of the south side left for another tenant, so they form an L around the remaining space. The
Oh, so
brick
it's just
portal
a
to the-
little nook that's available then?
There's a rectangular space.
Because this site plan sucks. I mean, you
Yeah,
should have
the
provided
site
something
plan shows
better.
the whole building.
Yeah,
But the line actually falls, if you look just to the left, to our left now, which is the west, you have the DXL proposed portal. To the east of that is the existing brick entryway
right.
that was formerly Blockbuster Video's main entrance.
Right. there'd be-
That will continue to serve an entrance for the remaining space. The space demises just to the east of those doors.
In and to
So
the
you'll
north,
be looking really at a
Sorry.
low impact, low parking
to the
Right,
north.
you will-
requirement for that new space.
No, we anticipate with typical retail use or even a typical cafe use, but we have adequate parking on site.
Strange that it's.
And are you in the Chicago market, or is this just a new?
DXL?
I've never heard of.
It's Casual Mail.
Okay.
It's our new
I'll let you-
concept. Yeah, we've taken Casual Mail and another company that we own called Rochester Big and Tall, which is more upper
Okay.
end customer, and combined them into one. Essentially, what we're doing in the next 3-4 years is hoping to open about 250 to 300 DXL locations coast to coast. First one was in the Chicago market in Schaumburg.
So you're planning on closing your existing store then?
As leases expire, they will fold them into the DXL stores, yes. that is
Okay,
correct.
so that'll
At
close.
some point in time down the road, there probably will not be many actual Casual Mail stores in existence anymore. They will all change to DXL.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Is there a motion to put together an ordinance for these changes?
So made.
I need to see the signs though too, but that's. Second,
This is minus the signs.
Do you want to put a condition on that?
no, because we'll
No,
see the.
You'll see the
later.
signs, yeah. Well,
Okay.
definitely want to see your signage, so, for sure, okay. So there's a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's have a roll call.
Trustee Schultz?
Aye.
Trustee Schwartz?
Aye.
Trustee Williams? Trustee Hebda?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Abstain.
Trustee Markwart?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll see
Thank
you
you for your
back
time.
here for signage. All right, Lakeview Parkway and Hawthorn Parkway improvements.
Thank you very much. John Vanna here from Civil Tech is here to talk about our Lakeview and Fairway project while he's setting things up. Really simply put, I wanted to remind the board previously at a committee of the whole meeting, there was direction to move forward with Civil Tech to increase their contract to address the Hawthorn Parkway and Lakeview intersection. So prior to doing that, I figured I'd invite John here and he can help us a little bit with just some basic details on the project. What we're really looking for tonight is just concurrence that we would like to still move ahead with the resolution. We would bring that back to the board at the next meeting to extend their contract. Really the improvements that we're talking about is there's the southerly Lakeview and Fairway project from the post office going north to 60. The additive part really is Hawthorn and Lakeview. And there's a couple of reasons John will point out to us on why that part is important to connect to and move forward with. He'll also provide us with a little bit in terms of the status. We're not looking for direction from the board in terms of moving ahead with the construction date at this meeting. We'll bring back as part of the capital improvement program having those type of discussions. Really the focus is more an update and then Civil
The
Tech's contract.
informational, okay.
Thank you.
All right, could you state your name for the record, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is John Van. I'm with Civil Tech Engineering.
John, if you want to use the handheld, you could do that. It's
That'll
easier.
help.
All right.
Thank you. Can all of you see this exhibit from where you are here?
Your mic's down on.
Oh.
Yep.
I'm a rookie at this, sorry. Can all of you see the exhibit from where you're sitting right now?
Yeah.
Essentially, like what this exhibit represents right here is the orange or red color represents the current project as approved that Civil Tech was hired to design back in 2009, and the yellow portion of the improvement is what's called we call it the MYB project, and it basically consists of intersection improvements at Hawthorn Parkway and Lakeview Parkway. So this is a federally funded project. It's the red or orange color project. The original one is currently approved with the Lake County Council of Mayors, and I believe that's currently in the federal fiscal year FY15. So that goes from October of 2014 to September of 2015. That's where it's at now. That's like Dave says, we're not here to really talk about the time frame, but where we're at with that project, the original one, is we've completed probably 70 to 75% of the design, so we've made some good progress with that. The key components that remain really center around the right-of-way acquisition. These federally funded projects tend to take an extended period of time to get ready, so it's always advantageous to have the engineering done so it can be ready and be funded. So the supplement that we have before you is basically to add the Hawthorn Parkway intersection to this improvement. And the reason that it makes sense is because there is, as you can see here, a certain amount of improvement that happens on the north leg of Lakeview Parkway. So from a construction efficiency and cost standpoint, it makes sense to not have to redo some of this work and do it all at once. Secondly, the MYB project at Hawthorn is very, it could have some substantial benefits to the traffic movement. Some of the issues that we have out there right now is the northbound traffic on Lakeview wanting to go west on Hawthorn Parkway tends to queue up and block some of the through lanes. So that would provide additional turn lane channelization and just help the intersection function better. And the overall project, although you do add a continuous second through lane through this stretch right here, the real benefit occurs at the intersections from a safety and an operational standpoint. At 60, at Phillip, and up at Fairway and Route 62.
Any questions from the board? I think it's necessary. I think it's a good plan, and since we're going to try to go forward with it anyway, it makes sense to include that Hawthorn Parkway in that whole process. Makes sense for me at least, knowing that that gets utilized a lot. When, Dave, you don't have I mean, I know you said there's really no time frame, but when would you want to start?
Well, we're discussing that. We have it in the multi-year plan budget. So, you know, we think of looking at our, you know, economic considerations. We're thinking about FY 16, 17 of actual construction. Obviously, we'd have to acquire right-of-way prior to that, so that would be budgeted 2 years prior to that to work through the right-of-way. So,
All right.
thank you.
Trustee Schultz?
Yeah, we'll probably float the bond for the 4.5 million, or will we float a series of bonds as we move forward?
What I am proposing is that we finance the 2 million of basically land and utility work in 14, 15 out of motor fuel tax funds. And then in early, basically, say May of 2016, issue a $4 million bond for the work, which we'll begin the payouts about then. We've done the bidding in, say, January or February, but we'll begin the payouts about that time.
Okay, well, that seems like more than enough. And if I do the math, 2 plus 4 is 6, and this says 4.5 million?
There's some monies that are already accounted for in their contract, so it's not exactly apples and apples. The construction cost is going to increase probably about potentially $500,000 by the time we get to a few
That's still
years.
5. Well, number one, is
You
there
have
enough?
utility, I'm sorry,
Okay.
excuse me,
Yeah,
but
no, go
did
ahead.
you calculate the utility, Dave?
In the chart, it shows to be determined in terms of the utilities, so we don't know the cost in terms of the utilities. I think that's where the extra million that you're asking about is, under the TBD part of it.
Okay. With that being said, is there going to be enough money in the MFT fund?
Yes, for the next 4 or 5 years. And then I think we may have to get into a pattern where we alternate. 1 year we do a road program out of the MFT fund, 1 year out of the general fund, partly because everything I'm saying I learned from Dave, so I feel like I'm
doing well.
I'm cheating the show, but partly because the Greg's Landing costs are going to go up at the end of this period, so we're a more expensive road program.
Okay. But, yeah, you did, but we'll get to that later, or next, I guess. But, yeah, you're talking about certain things being retired, certain bonds. So it shouldn't increase our debt service too much.
Right. It stays in a range. There may be a year of a spike, but it pretty much stays in a pretty tight range.
I'm just a little concerned because we know we want to do the police station, and that's 3 million. And we've already loaned out 2 million, although that should be as good as it being in our own pocket, but it's not in our pocket right now.
Not for a while.
Well, yeah, we won't get our first payment for another 3 years, or 2 years and 11 months, or whatever,
But who's counting?
yeah. I guess we're in good enough shape that we can afford this. I
understand.
yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, John, thank you so much.
Thank
Dave,
you.
too.
Thank
All
you.
right. We're still waiting on Trustee Williams, so we'll have to still continue on at committee before we can go back to board for your project. Okay, now I guess I'm ready for the staff speaking parts. Is that
The
correct?
capital. Well,
Capital.
maybe Trustee Hebda, I can just intro it.
Yes.
And Dave and I have talked about it. What we want, Dave did a great job, he and the staff, putting this, the CIP together. And as you note, it's multi-year. Tonight, what we wanted to do was really just concentrate on 13, 14. And Trustee Schultz had some very good questions. Larry needs to get into, the cash flow and bond issuance. But I would suggest maybe we do that in a session, one of the budget sessions, and spend most of one night on capital projects, the multi-year. So tonight's really to get direction so Larry and the staff can finalize, we can all finalize the budget, the preliminary budget for you all to review. So with that thought in mind. And then the one thing too is the staff, we've been kind of going back and forth on the police remodeling, whether to have that actually budgeted in 13-14. And I guess after thinking about it, and I talked to the mayor a bit, is suggesting do not put it into the actual budget, and we can talk about it a little bit more in the budget process. And then, of course, as you know, you can amend the budget anytime during the 12 months of the budget. So after we've studied the cash flow, and of course you study a little bit more of the improvements that are recommended. So with that, Dave, if you want to go through the 13-14 piece of it.
Thank you. I did share binders with the board and staff. Really, we're looking at for the fiscal year 2013-2014 budget, a proposed budget of $4,737,216. Like Manager Allison said previously, the Police and Communications Center is a large part of that. Roughly, the number at least in the budget's 3.5 million, just depending on further discussions on that. Removing that, we're really at 1.2 million in terms of the capital program. A substantial part of that 1.2 million is our road rehab program that we've discussed before, 700,000. We will also be doing the Metro lot. The original section is being resurfaced. We are looking to do that approximately in June, and we'll work around the commuters with that too. So that's 190,000. We have our normal levels in terms of sidewalk, curb, crack sealing, patching program. Those amount to 149,000. Really, the only real difference is it's the same dollar amounts that we've used before. We are adding 10,000 into the sidewalk program because we have more needs there, but it's the same budget amount from past years. In terms of the concrete patching, we at times, the last 3 or 4 years, have went into Midway and Linden and done repairs to the concrete pavement. Midway and Linden are our only concrete streets. They demand a little more attention. We're going to give them a little relief this year and give them the year off. We'll still, crack seal and patch as necessary with asphalt, but we'll give them the year off. The other substantial item is just the VHAC path paving, $65,000. We hope over a 2-year period to finish the paving within the pass at the VHAC and finish that up. So I've hit on the majority of them, the last few of them. If you wanted to go to, it's the second page in your book. Essentially where we're at is a couple of smaller items. The Public Works storage bins, we're proposing to hire an architect to put together some additional storage thoughts. This is cold storage, the building all the way back up against the railroad. We have existing bins that are open. We'd like to cover those so we can have dry material that is needed. We would add a couple of more open bins. We just have a lot more things to store, and we need to store them in a dry condition. So that would be the services for an architect. Moving along, there was direction from the board previously about moving ahead with some directional signage within New Century Town area, Whirly Ball, etc. There's $20,000 budgeted for that. I've worked with John and Mike Atkinson on that, and so Mike Atkinson has shared some budget numbers on it, and so we've included those within the budget. We went through the preventive maintenance program. We went through the sidewalk program. the remaining money really falls into either open space or municipal building maintenance. In terms of open space, no change in terms of open space CV drainage ditch, bank cleaning and stabilization. That includes Harvey Lake and the CV ditch, $18,000. We need some materials for atrium drainage way to keep that maintained. And the two newer ones are Lake Charles and Harvey Lake. As you know, we just received information at a preliminary level from Lake County Lakes Management. So we don't have the final report for Lake Charles in terms of how to manage that lake better. But we wanted to have a holding account, some money in there to address what they tell us in the report will be needed. We know that there's a lot of invasives that we will have to deal with. We also know that there's sedimentation at the north end that we will have to look into a little bit further. But maybe the larger one is Harvey Lake. We know that there's invasives there, and we need to tackle that in April of this year and next year, and we may have to budget in future years too. Questions?
Trustee Schultz?
Yes. Just a point of curiosity. I was having a hard time because you gave me a blow up here that I couldn't really ascertain what street it was going to, but I'm pretty sure it's going to Bay Tree. The parking lot, I'd prefer seeing that parking lot go to Lakeview rather than a neighborhood street, but going off of Lakeview. Does that change that porous pavement and parking lot?
You know, because that's a future consideration, we can share some different designs with the board, and there may be a little bit change in the budget, but whatever the board's wishes as far as the access, we can put some designs together.
Yeah, I see that as kind of a community amenity, and by bringing it in off of Museum Boulevard and then on to Bay Tree, you're really bringing the traffic into the neighborhood. I'd rather just see it come off of a main collector street, which Lakeview is. So that would be my preference if you're going to commit any type of dollars or time within your own department for design on that.
Okay. Well, we'll as that is a future item. Let me put some designs together, pencil sketches, and we'll share that with the board. So very good input.
Trustee Schwartz?
Was there any other possibilities for the creek through the golf course besides just trimming along the bank, that you had some possible other ideas of what we can do to make that area work a little better?
Yeah, we do have some money in a separate budget. When the contractor defaulted, we had some settlement money. So there has been some discussions as far as adding some sedges or some things that grow lower. We also have some money that we can look at, you know, mowing and trimming within certain parameters along the riparian area. So.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah. And I have one more section, and if you have any more questions, feel free to share them. The Public Works building, the tile in the lunchroom, $9,500. The tile was last replaced when the building was expanded, so it's stop by, take a look at it. It's in dire need of replacement. The tiles are popping. The last two items, the Village Hall landscaping enhancement. There is a drawing. Would love to have some feedback as far as what your thoughts are at the entrance of the Village Hall. You know, there was the original plan and design. There's large mulch beds. This site used to have no mow areas, So those, based on board direction, we've removed the no-mow areas and we've added grass. The grass doesn't grow as well as it should without an irrigation system. So most of the budget of that 20,000, 15,000 would be for irrigation. So when we have droughts like last summer, we don't have to pull hoses or pull a truck up and water it. So I think there's some savings there. But you know, feel free to give us some input in terms of, you know, the larger cottonwood. We're having, what we really want to do is have a more showcase for the entrance to the village hall. There's a lot of mulch, there's a lacking of color, and as the trees are growing, we have trees that are growing into the flags, and so we're replacing a lot of flags that are ripping because of that, and there's some trees in here that are dying too. So as you find more time, take a look at the colored rendering. It is just a draft. It is just something that Josh Hansen from my staff put together to just solicit input and feedback.
One more.
Go ahead, Jim.
With regard, I see in the municipal golf course there are no long-term capital. And I don't know if this is a long-term capital, a short-term, or an expense item, but I was invited to be a guest chef for several events, and worked out great. However, I have a problem with the hot water not being responsive enough within the kitchen there, especially what I was doing. And I was preparing turkeys to be deep fat fried. And when you're preparing turkeys, you've got salmonella issues. And so when I'm done prepping the turkey, I definitely want to wash my hands so I can handle the equipment. And it's difficult initially to get hot water up into the kitchen there until it's run for a couple of minutes. And I'm not that patient. So there was a suggestion by the building department that we could add a recirculating pump, which would probably add several $100s to the electrical and gas costs over the course of a year. And it has a $1,000 cost to install it. And I'd like to add that to some list, whether it be a long-term or short-term expense or whatever, because I think that would be a good upgrade to the kitchen.
Wash your hands in cold water.
For the once a year that, no, I'm sorry.
Actually, I do
No,
it
we'll,
3 times.
yeah, Dave and I have talked about that, and we'll confer. I know some people that work over there, and we'll confer with them.
The people that work over there were looking for more concurrence by my associates, I guess. So
I didn't hear about this option. I thought the only option was like $10,000, and that was kind of out of the question.
you need to talk to your
So-
partner in crime.
Okay.
But yeah, supposedly it's about $1,000 install.
For the recirculation pump? Yeah, probably about that. And you need to run electric too, so that might add a little bit more cost, but some, 1,000, 1,500, somewhere in there.
Right, but it would have an ongoing energy because it constantly circulates the hot water coming out of the tank. So it draws, so you're going to be heating the basement a little bit more off of those pipes. So we could probably do a better wrap job on those pipes. And then there's a minor amount of electricity to operate the pump. So, but I think it would be well worth it to have more on-demand hot water in the kitchen there. We talked about a tankless water heater. To do that, it would have to have a National Sanitation Foundation sticker on it, and that takes the price from $600 at Home Depot to $8,000 or $10,000.
Home Depot won't cut it on the usage. It's going to be about $3,000. You can get a $3,000.
Well, you know what we'll do, Trustee Schultz? We'll take a look at it, and if possible, we'll try to squeeze it into this year's budget, if possible. I don't want to commit date.
Is the rest of the board?
Well, you know, it's important, I mean, but too, there's a lot here that has to be digested too. So I guess knowing that we're going to be going into budget discussions and knowing what we've seen our finance director showing us. I, want to make sure that we've got our priorities straight as to what's going to go in where.
Well, why don't we, we'll get a number, we'll see if we can find a place in a budget, and we'll get back to you within the next several weeks. How's that?
And one thing we could do is ask Kemper to take a look at their capital budget and see if that can
If they've got
fit
money,
in.
yeah.
Supposed to come down with usage too.
We set up a budget schedule at all as far as when we're going to start to talk about that? Did you do that 2 weeks ago, or?
We didn't do an exact schedule. We were gonna talk about that at our next meeting.
Next meeting, okay.
Yeah, about, kind
It's
of
gonna be coming
dates
up.
and when people are available and
Okay.
all that good stuff, so, on the 19th. Maybe Larry, in the interim, we can send something out
That-
and solicit, when
Some-
everyone's available.
Anything else, Dave?
One last item is just all of our entry monuments, we want to tuck point those $18,000, and that summarizes the
Yeah.
request.
Yep. Okay. Any questions, other questions from the board? No? All right.
Thank you.
One other, we had discussed it a long time ago. I want to say like 3 years ago, when we were having all the discussions about the Greg's Landing entry signs, talking about adding some additional signs in other communities to designate who they are. Hawthorn Club, Deer Path, Old Vernon Hills, or Country Club Estates, I guess it was originally called. I'd like to just maybe earmark a few dollars in there. Not saying that we're going to ever do it, but at least understand what a permanent sign would cost. Something cast in concrete, and ornamental concrete, similar to some of the Greg's Landing signs, just so we have a number and kind of put together which neighborhoods and what that would transpire to be, especially for the neighborhoods that don't have homeowners associations. Like New Century 2, the Manor Homes just put up a sign, but they have a homeowners association that sponsored that and put it in place. But Deer Path doesn't have a homeowners association. Hawthorn Club doesn't. The original section of Vernon Hills doesn't. Maybe we want to take a look at doing something like that.
I'll make a comment on that. I'm just concerned about, some of these neighborhoods have an established entry treatment as they come in. And then we start to put all these signs up all over, and I'm not sure
Who maintains?
how
Somebody's
that's gonna
gotta
look.
maintain 'em
Who maintains them?
in the
And then
landscape.
who maintains them? I mean,
Well, that's why, yeah, most
mean,
definitely it has to be
it's gotta
a
be done.
low maintenance sign.
Right, so I just worry that, all these signs are gonna go up, and personally, my opinion is we all live in Vernon Hills. That's the way from this chair, I live in Vernon Hills, and I know that there are people that have moved in and they understand the neighborhoods and stuff, and I appreciate that, but I guess, we're all a part of this community as one community, so if you live in Vernon Hills, let's GPS your street, and we will find you. So, but I know there are homeowners associations too, so I don't want to get signs going crazy too. That's just me, though. I don't know about the rest of the board.
Me too.
So, okay. All right. So we'll bring this to budget. We'll bring this to budget, and Larry, you'll make sure that you keep us the thumb on us too, on what we need to do, so, all right. Next item is, have we heard from Barbara, or we don't know what's going on?
No, I know she was going to be late because of work, and
Right.
maybe, I'm not
Sure if she's
sure
gonna come.
she's going to make it.
And you haven't heard
so-
from the mayor yet either.
Yeah, well, why don't we go, I think the item
La
on
Crosse.
Lacrosse America,
You do that?
and I have another VHAC question for you, it should be pretty quick,
Okay,
you know.
all right,
we could-
so Lacrosse America,
Yeah.
the multi-year contract.
You see the numbers, this is basically, I gave this to you last year, these numbers, and I talked to Chad Gruen, the representative from Lacrosse America today. And he, again, you know, he and I have talked about some diminished amount for 2013 because he is paying the Cougars, the Vernon Hills Athletic Association, some additional money because they're doing some additional things out there, and they have an exclusive, or I guess a near exclusive on the concessions out there. They have some other limited concessions, but the lion's share of it would be done by VHAC. So anyway, that's part of it. But now talking to Chad this afternoon, he suggested too that instead of the one idea of 5, 10, and 15 over a 3-year multi-year contract, they'd be willing to look at maybe just 10, 10, and 10. Yeah. So that's just throwing out a couple ideas there. Pretty cool. And again, as you can see, I apologize, just a note, and that certainly doesn't cover the direct expenses of Public Works and Police. However, we know, as in other things that we do, it's really promoting the community. As we say in the tourism business, it's heads and beds, it's restaurant. And anyone who went to that tournament at the VHAC knows there was one heck of a lot of people in Vernon Hills that weekend. So there are a lot of people that go to our retailers and spend money and promote different things in the community. So,
Trustee Markor?
Michael Priority spoke for me, but that is correct. It's, you look at the hotels, the restaurants, the stores that will be used. I believe Lacrosse America is up to 90 some odd teams.
I think they're over 100.
Yeah, 100 teams.
He was expecting.
They had 100 teams last year, just under 100 teams, so they'll have just over 100 teams. So, yes, this will definitely, I think, help our hotels, our restaurants, our stores, and you don't see it, but we will feel it. So I think it's going to be good for us.
So, Mike, you're not looking for anything. You're just
Well,
what are you looking
some direction so that we can negotiate a contract with Lacrosse America. And if this makes sense along the lines of what you're thinking, do you want to do the 10, 10, and 10, or 5, 10, and 15, or
I got a couple
something more to throw out to them? Maybe, you know, I'd suggest maybe not exceeding 10 in 2013, but maybe if you want to do 10, 10, and then I suggested maybe year 3, or even 2 and 3, that if they reach a threshold on teams, that they'd pay some additional amount. Say like over, we'd have to think through a formula, but say over 100 teams, some amount of money for each team over 100.
And our expense, though, too, from last year was the initial expenses of fences. I know of, again, out of the work the Public Works did, it's excessive, but I think with some of the changes that we will do some changes. I think that they will do striping possibly. It will cut down the costs and even things out pretty well.
Trustee Cook?
Do you have a ballpark figure for the ongoing expenses? Because that was the thing I was having trouble. The fencing and that stuff was all initial, correct?
Right. I would think, Dave, I figured about 20 to 22,000 maybe, assuming the fence is perfectly, you know, it gets taken down and there's no replacement and all that, but maybe in the low 20s for the cost.
And we've built that into our overtime budget.
Yeah.
So.
Which means a net of like a $10,000 loss every year.
Right.
The 20, is that based on the, them doing the striping as opposed to last year where we did the striping?
Well, I didn't talk to Dave a lot about it, but he volunteered that he'd have a few people here and we'd be able to pull ourselves away from some of the work. So I'm figuring save a few thousand there, save the money on the capital cost. So that's where I came up with the roughly 22 to 25,000 on an annualized basis.
Because I'm thinking it's a little higher unless you pull out. Because you're at 44 minus 14, gets you to 30.
Well, but on the striping and,
So is
you
the
know,
striping
that was pretty time consuming, as I recall.
We were more than happy to accept Lacrosse America in them being responsible for the striping. A lot of man hours with that. They're going to dedicate the bodies. We need to have 2 people instead of 6 or 8 people. And it was multiple days just for the initial setup, and then we had to go back and restripe it. And the Park District also helped us with that.
Trustee Schultz?
With regard to the length of the contract, you know, we go back and forth. I mean, the last time we really talked, when we were scheduling the dates, we were talking about the VHAC being a community amenity for the primary use of our community. And I don't know if we're going to field a lacrosse team this year or not, but last year there was no Vernon Hills lacrosse team. And I don't want to get into a long-term agreement with something that's really not benefiting the sporting community. I'm willing to get into a shorter term that's going to benefit our commercial or retail community, but it really doesn't, this doesn't benefit our residential community. And things may change, times may change. I don't know if lacrosse is going to take off. I assume it probably will, but you know, I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe a couple years or a 3-year agreement at most, not a 10-year agreement.
Well, that's what we're talking about, 3-year. That's what you
We're
talked to us
Okay,
about.
I got the impression you were talking about.
3 years.
Okay, then I stand
Well,
corrected.
and also, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom and Mike know far better than I do. We had club lacrosse here for a while, and I think this may spawn interest in it too, you know, have a big tournament.
It wasn't that we didn't have a team to participate.
Right.
So
No,
now maybe we will, because
Yeah.
it's,
In fact, Dave and I found out how hard that lacrosse ball is when we're with Brian
Matty.
McDonald. We just grabbed it by our hand, not hit in our head, so, luckily. So.
threw it at each other.
So you're looking at wanting to put together
like a
3-year
3-year agreement, and just how do you want to structure the revenues and recognizing that it's not recapturing direct costs, but would you want to do some escalating thing with the number of teams maybe?
Right, and with that, I'd like to set up a separate accrual account, savings account, so to speak, within our finance for the deposit of that money into those accounts for ongoing capital improvements at VHAC.
The VHAC.
So that any revenues we generate, be they from something with other tournaments or with our own teams and our own organizations, if there's any kind of revenue that's generated, I'd like to see that be earmarked for that fund, and that fund then would support capital improvements no matter what.
That's what we've been trying to set up, because technically out of the groups, the Cougars, youth, doesn't pay, really none of the Vernon Hills pay anything to the village for the use, which is fine. And having somebody come in that we can collect money and then get usage, then it's going to help, because it's, am I not correct, $250,000, $240,000 it costs for the maintenance of VHAC.
Well, yeah.
Yes, that is
So try to help out with having some things.
So will you bring back something
Yeah,
in the next board, or?
if I got some direction, so
Okay, good.
3 years
Max.
and max.
Max.
Well, yeah, we won't go. He didn't ask for anything beyond 3 years, and I think, not to use his arguments, but I would guess he would say that when you make this multi-year commitment, you can really work hard at growing the thing, because you got, you know, more teams and commitment. all that good stuff. So anyway, and then maybe in year 3, look at an escalator as far as, do you want to do 10, 10, and then in year 3, do something with more teams, more payment for rental, something like that?
I think you
in
have
year
to, yeah.
3?
Yep.
Okay.
Because it's going to cost more to maintain.
Yeah, at some point, there's going to be no more diminishing returns.
Right.
And it's going to cost
Only
us.
max it,
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And especially, at some point, if American Hotel Register decides to develop theirs, then that's going to limit some things, but it's also going to limit some parking opportunities.
Sure.
And yeah.
Yep.
So.
You said you had another item, Mike, that you wanted to talk
Oh,
about?
yeah, thank you. I sent out to you in an email, well, I sent several emails on the VHAC use, again, going back to the rental use for outside organizations. There's an organization that wants to rent, it's baseball tournament, game day, and they want to rent the end of June, Friday the 28th, late in the day, and then Saturday the 29th and Sunday the 30th for a tournament. And then the second tournament would be Saturday, July 27th and Sunday, July 28th. And you saw some comments from VHAA about the field rentals for tournaments. So I wanted to ask you, if we use the Park District's fee schedule for use of those fields, and the estimated, Joe Bruntmeyer from the Park District did these estimates, it would be for the 2 tournaments about $23,000. And the typical thing with police is very little. This would be a tournament equivalent to the Cougar Classic. So, and then on Public Works, the Park District picks up the refuse on the site, and we would probably do some work. So our direct out-of-pocket costs are pretty minimal for a tournament like this.
Trustee Cook?
Does that then book up those fields for 6, 7, 8 weeks in a row? And what would that do to?
Well, that would be for just those 2 weekends for fields 1 through 6, the pinwheel and the 2.
But we also have
I can answer.
several other tournaments on those same fields in between.
I can answer it only the fact that I believe in those time frames that they have it for is the end of July. It wouldn't interfere with from baseball or softball. It's usually where it's going to be done. Where it does affect, which was brought up already, is the seating, the maintenance of the field. But if I'm correct, we can end up take care of that. I do know though in July,
you mean in June?
Excuse me,
Yeah.
in June, that there is
there's a rec program.
And
they could be accommodated though in like Cherokee Park, Hawthorn Melody, different places. And I've already talked to the Park District. This came from an inquiry through the Park District, and Jeff Fougeroux and I talked about they would accommodate all those rec teams. They have, what, 11 or 12 fields amongst all their facilities.
And also that weekend, that end of June, that's kind of the beginning of the 4th of July vacation window. And so a lot of teams basically shut down or
start go, right.
Yeah, because they're losing a lot of kids for 4th of July vacation.
So
so it probably makes good sense.
Well,
Now, there was a point, though, that the Cougars made that by having more tournaments, it would diminish the value of their tournament, and they were somewhat concerned about the loss of potential teams because they'd get to play at VHAC at a different point rather than the Cougar Classic or one of their other tournaments.
I think their concern is in the end of June, not so much the July. So there may be some little friction with the end of June tournament.
And their first tournament in July.
And the end of July time frame, I don't think it interferes with anybody. The only thing it interferes with, as I mentioned, was by the start of the maintenance.
Now, talking to a few people, and again, these are all opinions.
Right.
They didn't think it would conflict because I have no personal knowledge of that whatsoever, but they indicated, you know, you've got these tournaments going all the time.
All the time. I mean, you've got tons of tournaments to choose
Yeah,
from.
so.
Well, but
I don't
that
know.
was my other basic question is, at what point do you overuse the turf? I mean, does that come into play at all?
You know, right now, I guess really they're talking about using all 6 fields. In terms of the maintenance of it, our proposal is, and you'll see that in our budget, is for the village to do the infield maintenance. We would, as part of our budget, we would have adequate staff, 2 seasonals that would work the fields nonstop professionally. We can keep up with that.
I
I'm
mean,
not
if you're
worried about
maintaining
that.
fields, they should be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, so I'm
matter how much-
comfortable with that, and I think they'll be in better shape than what we've seen in the past. In terms of the money in that, I just wanted to update the board that we have a bill that we had a contractor out there with the windstorms that we had 2 or 3 weeks ago. Some of the turnbuckles and things that hold up the safety netting has failed. So we're, you know, spending money on fixing that. So we have some bills to pay. So just my input, I guess.
So 23,000 over each weekend, 2 weekends, plus
might be
10
kinda
from
nice.
Lacrosse,
Right.
turns in 50K a year.
Well, it's 23, I'm sorry, for the 2 tournaments.
For the
okay.
2,
Yeah.
okay.
So 10 to 13 a
Well,
tournament.
just like your lacrosse.
Depending on the number of teams.
All right, so 35,000 plus or minus.
Well, I'm sure our businesses will appreciate that as well, because it will bring
Right.
people in to
Yeah.
use those businesses, which we want to keep that viable too, so.
Okay.
All right.
So I will,
Go.
if everyone's in concurrence, I'll
Everybody-
communicate with the park district to
Okay.
talk to game day and tell them,
Yeah.
plan on those 2 weekends.
Yep.
Okay?
And keep the lines open with the Cougars also.
Right,
to-
just as long as there's no
Oh,
interference
I'm
with
gonna
local
tell them,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
respond
With
to
the
their
Cougars,
email.
I know they've got their concessions, they could maybe profit
Right.
from the concessions too, of those people using that as
Right.
well, so that's a plus for them too.
Right.
So, okay, all right. All right, there's nothing else on committee, I guess we'll adjourn committee to go back to board. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Second? Second. Okay. Roll call?
Trustees Cook,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye?
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz, Williams,
Aye.
Hebda.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. And we're gonna come back to board, and we're gonna go back to,
reconvene.
motion to reconvene the board, thank you.
So made.
Second.
Do I need a roll call for that? Roll call?
Trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams, Hebda,
Aye?
Cook.
Aye.
Okay, so we are gonna go back to,
Unfinished.
unfinished business. And we need to approval of the Kemper voucher list of bills dated February 5th, 2013 in the amount of $12,164.11. Is there a motion to approve?
So made.
Second.
Roll call?
Trustees Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Abstain.
Williams, Hebda,
Aye?
Cook,
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Okay. And then we have item C, approval and passage of resolution 2013-012, authorizing the payment of $37,500 to Kemper Sports Management for the 2012 maintenance fee for the Vernon Hills Municipal Golf Course. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the management fee payment.
Second it.
Roll call?
Trustees Schwartz,
Abstain.
Williams, Hebda,
Aye?
Cook,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All right, so the last item I think we have to discuss is the Oaks of Vernon Hills.
Thank you, Madam President. In your packet is the staff's summation with regards to the Oaks of Vernon Hills. You have 3 items that you'll take under consideration tonight. First will be an update on the traffic impact study that Director of Public Works, Village Engineer Brown will go over, presenting the findings and recommendations. Secondly, will be a discussion with regards to property ownership on the property, and some concerns that the staff has with regards to that, which have been laid out in the in your packet in the summation section. Within that section, there's also a recommendation for an additional condition to be added to the ordinance that you have in your packet, which is the third item. Village Attorney Kenny will review the property ownership item and answer any questions that you may have with regards to this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave. And
thank you. Yeah, we were able to work with the developer's traffic engineer, received some revisions and questions. Our consultant, Civil Tech Engineering, was able to review it, and in your board packet are really the summaries and findings. You know, there's some good things, which, you know, the study did help with a number of things. The initial information that they shared, and then more recently. What it did, the initial one flushed out that we should not add a traffic signal at Corporate Woods. That would just fill the gaps, and the gaps are very important for people getting out onto the roadway. Going through those discussions, it did lead towards the developer moving forward with the easterly connection to Forest Edge. That substantially helped, you know, the situation in terms of dispersing flow. So other things, there's concurrence as far as how much traffic would go in each different direction. Without that connection, everyone would only have one option in terms of going out to Route 45. Maybe on the downside, we know Route 45 in terms of the traffic today. We understand, I just had a meeting with IDOT, and they're still continuing with their studies. They just had a kickoff for the Phase 2 study, and Phase 3, the construction, they're estimating at $73 million. So with the state of affairs with Illinois, we don't anticipate that would happen anytime soon. I really would like to see, you know, if we could apply whatever pressure we can, and this board has done a great job in past boards on saying widen Route 45. That's really the solution up and down the corridor. So any help with that's really appreciated. So you know, if it was widened, we wouldn't be having discussions whether or not, you know, how the intersections are going to function. In looking at it, there will be gaps at times. There will be times when it's going to be very troublesome for people to get out of this subdivision. The good news is they've tried to attenuate that by dispersing it to woodlands, but it's still going to be difficult at times for people to get out. In their previous reports, one of the things that they were looking at is comparing it to the previous use of office. Their original preliminary approvals was subject to a traffic report, and the previous traffic report said the previous use was just unacceptable from a traffic standpoint. The newer one, in terms of residential, I concur with their traffic engineer. It is better than the previous use. Is it ideal? I don't know if anything's ideal given the traffic on Route 45. So I do think the good news as far as residential is the AM peaks, and when people are heading towards half-day area, southeasterly, the timing is better with residential, that you would be able to get a gap, go out to Route 45, and then when people return home, it's inbound peaks that are not as much of a concern. What the problem really is with the train schedule, with the trains, with the traffic heading northwesterly in the PM peaks, when it gets to be about 4:30, it's a parking lot. It's very difficult for anyone. Corporate Woods is leaving. You know, everyone's exiting Corporate Woods at that time. Continental Executive Park. It does take 2 cycles for someone to get through going northwesterly past Fairway Drive. So I think residential, if the board's approving, development on this site, looking at the numbers and different uses that could be there, residential is better than some of the other alternatives. As has been included in your conditions, there is a triangular parcel that is adjacent to this, and there's no defined use. The developer did share with us a potential office development. We did work those in. Their traffic engineer did work those in. So we have a good study in terms of that information. The future use of that site's going to be important as far as what ultimately is approved on that site. And there is a condition in the approval that does, make that a condition that they would give us another traffic study at that point. So the rest of the information, the packet, et cetera, and all the statistics that the engineer put together is in your packet. But that's my summary.
Comments from the board on the traffic? I just want to make sure that those items that Dave has outlined be put into this final ordinance so that you gentlemen understand what we're talking about before we approve anything. He's got the future land use on the commercial parcel, the horizontal and vertical side, all of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them.
Okay. I have two issues. They dovetail together, and I think it's important to start off and say that my issue has nothing to do with this developer. My concerns and the staff's concerns are not driven by who we're dealing with. It's driven by 10 years from now, 15 years from now. So, I don't want this to be seen as some sort of comment of the quality of the developer, because that's not the case. If this developer was going to stay in place owning the apartments, we probably wouldn't have an issue. But the first one I'm going to call an ownership issue. We've got an apartment complex with multiple buildings, and the staff feels, and I agree, that we need to keep the apartment complex under one ownership. It's being proposed as that now, but in some instances of some apartment projects with multiple buildings, you find years down the path that individual buildings are owned by individuals rather than the original developer or apartment operator. And then the maintenance of those buildings have different standards determining on who owns the building. So the first issue is having this apartment complex owned by the same entity so that the quality of the maintenance remains the same. We have a lot of, we've got the clubhouse, we have the pool, we have detention, we've got tree conservation, we have an access road, we have shared driveways. We have a lot of issues here that really needs to be addressed by one entity. However, we're also aware that at some point, no one would be surprised if it was converted to condominium at some time in the future, again, not immediately, 10, 15 years down the line, and we want to be prepared for that as well. So that leads me into the Property Owners Association or Condominium Association aspect of this. Currently, we are recommending that we put in place a Property Owners Association so that it will all be maintained as one development. Now, the property, although the commercial parcel most likely is going to be owned separately and probably in much shorter order than any of the residential, that parcel would be included in this Property Owners Association because they have some detention on site, they need shared access, so that it would be all the same maintenance responsibility. It may be that the commercial property owner may just be paying a fee to the apartment project to have their share of the maintenance handled. But we think it's best to have that Property Owners Association mechanism put in place with a term that if anything goes condominium, if the townhomes are sold, that that there's a mechanism in place that will be triggered so that the village is not in a position where we're unable to create at that time a maintenance vehicle where we've got long-term security. We've talked with the developers about that. I don't want to speak for them. I'd say there's general consensus, but what we'd want to do is work together on the documentation and conclude those negotiations so when they come back for final, those documents would be ready to be recorded as well. And if there's a concurrence with that concept, we would be recommending the addition of condition number 35 in John's memo, that be added to the ordinance this evening. And the reason why I am stressing the importance of adding that as a condition now is when we get to final, oftentimes there's market pressure to get the project done. They've got financing that's triggered, may be lost, and I don't want this issue to come up at the last minute and be the reason why we or the developer loses 2-3 meetings because we're going back and forth about documentation. I just think now's the time to acknowledge the issue if the board agrees with us, and we have a space of time that we can easily deal with the issue before they come back for final.
Does the board have consensus on Dave's comments and the attorney's comments? I know I do.
Yes.
So what do you need us to do next, John?
If the board chooses a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 2013-002, which is an ordinance granting certain preliminary approvals for the property commonly known as the Oaks of Vernon Hills, a planned unit development located on the north side of Route 45 between Corporate Woods and Woodlands Parkways in the village of Vernon Hills, Lake County, Illinois, subject to the addition of condition number 35, which is listed in your packet, consisting of items 1 through 3. I would also acknowledge that the additional item was added to the condition regarding the commercial lot, so there will be additional traffic study required at some point before that lot goes under development. And with that, we can answer any questions.
Any questions? Trustee Cook.
With the ownership situation, how would that be affected if and when it ever would start to turn over to condo? I mean, I don't foresee that happening, but.
I am just going to put a scenario out there, and I'm not suggesting that it'll happen that way, and I'm not suggesting that the developer is indicating it's going to happen that way. But take the apartment aspect of it. At some point, the economy changes such that the townhome units could be turned into a condominium. And the apartment buildings would remain the apartment buildings. We would want these documents to in effect, acknowledge that possibility and be self-triggering so that there's no stress about what are we going to do, how are we going to maintain it. So that we want it to be seamless so that they have the flexibility to do what the market drives that project to do, and we're protected as that happens.
But your biggest concern is that the buildings remain as a single unit as opposed to
while they're under
multiple
apartment ownership, so that if there's a financial reason to sell this apartment project, we want to make sure it gets sold as a project and not, I'll sell you 4 buildings and this person 3 buildings. So while it's apartment, we think it should stay under one ownership.
And if it went to condos, then there would be a homeowners association set up.
Well, we would create the property owners association now. There would be one owner managing it, and it would be pretty easy self-executing. And creating it now is just to avoid having the village struggling to try and create it 10 years from now. So it would be in place and not probably needed much because the manager of that apartment complex is going to be doing most of this anyway. The only added nuance is the commercial piece.
Which has
Did I answer your question?
Yes,
Tom?
yeah. Yeah, because I'm unfamiliar with going the other way. I do know that you have the potential, if you live in a total condo development, when too many units start to become rentals, it can interfere with sale of a unit in attempting to get financing. So I was wondering what it was like coming from the other direction.
Well, as I say, this is a long-term, in my opinion, it's a long-term concern that the project is 10, 20, I mean, I don't have a magic year where, it's not looking as spiffy as it does when it's built and.
Well, and I'm completely on board with the idea of it being, remaining a unit, because that does lend to overall long-term maintenance, and nothing's worse than if you get one building owned by somebody who doesn't care as much as the other 6 or 7 owners,
Right.
Yeah, a good example is out on Westmoreland. All those buildings were pretty much built at the same point in time, but each building, whatever it is, 4 flat, 6 flat, has a different owner, and you can tell the difference in the maintenance between buildings. And not that that would ever happen, but that's something that we're trying to protect against here, and I don't have a problem with trying to protect against that, so.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve the ordinance 2013-002, subject to the comments made by the Director of Public Works, the Assistant Village Manager, John Kilmar, and Attorney Kenny to develop this ordinance.
And that would be to add condition 35
Right,
to the
condition
Exhibit C of the approving
Do
ordinance.
the developers have anything they
And-
want to say before? No, they're just shaking their heads, no. They're done, they're done. But yes,
And revise number 28.
Right.
Right, to add the traffic study, the additional.
Yeah,
Right.
It's in there.
it's in- okay, all right. Do I have a motion?
So made.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Can I have any other comments or questions? Not, let's have a roll call.
Trustees Williams, Trustee Hebde,
Aye?
Trustee Cook,
Aye?
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Schwartz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion approved. Is there anything else to come before the board?
No, ma'am.
No,
Executive session, right?
no executive session?
Yes, we have one.
Oh, come on.
Well,
Seriously? Aye, okay.
you can talk quickly.
So what is going to be talked about at executive session?
Well, on all three
All
major,
three major.
personnel, collective
ahead.
bargaining, litigation, and property acquisition.
All right,
That's quickly.
all right. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Second.
Roll call. Aye.
Aye?
Trustee Markwart,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Trustee Schwartz,
Aye.
Trustee Williams.
Jane, come on. No, you're not getting off that road. Easy. No, it shouldn't take that. A couple of them are just information items.
Oh.
If townhomes turn to condos, they're still